internal network for different things to go after. Then they start dropping their exploits. And this is normally done very low and slow after hours so that people watching the network don't notice. And eventually you'll see maybe an outbound tunnel and exfiltration. So what you're looking here on the right is an actual Sunburst attack that we had with one of our customers. The next slide is, here's what this would look like from a traditional attack perspective. So in this example, what you're seeing here is more of a brute force type attack where multiple external IP addresses had failed logins to a particular internal IP address. It could be very similar to a phishing attack where maybe the end user gets compromised and their machine becomes the launching point. So everything on the left is kind of the brute force until they have a successful login and they download their payload. Then they scan the internal network, they find the exploitations. In this case, it was a SQL dump file where they dumped the database to a file and they exfiltrated it through an outbound tunnel. So I'm going to pause here for a second. I'm going to show you what this actually looks like in the Stellar Cyber console and why it's so important to be able to correlate a lot of these different threat vectors, as everybody's been talking about today. Some of these things could happen in the cloud. They could happen to a remote user. It could happen almost anywhere today. So what we need is the ability to pull all of that data in and make sense of it very quickly. So if we were going to go figure out if our SolarWinds server had been compromised, all we would have to do is search for it. Once we find it, we get a nice asset overview of that server, what's running on it, where it's geolocated, all kinds of other great information, right? But what's more important is we provide a 360-degree panoramic view of what's happening with that particular machine. Here's your SolarWinds server. This was the outbound communication for the update. Once that machine was compromised through the update, we saw several things happen. First, we saw it connect to Azure AD. Then we saw it drop a threat onto another machine. Then we started seeing a lot of strange things happen, like an RDP brute force attack against this server, which ultimately was successful. And then you start to see additional events follow on from there. And then down here, you also see a Trojan that was delivered. This could very easily have been ransomware or something even worse. But what you have to understand is that one of these could be your domain controller, and you could be having a very bad day. So I'm going to go ahead and just share another quick threat. And this time we'll look for that dump file execution. So what we've done in our platform is we've identified all the different areas of the kill chain, and we've associated threats with those different areas. On the left, you're seeing all of the compromised assets. On the right, you're seeing all of the top alerts. But here in the middle, if we want to be a little bit more specific, these are all different machine learning detections that we do to look for bad behavior. In this example, we'll look at a SQL dump file execution. So here we know that someone has dumped your entire database to a file. And then we want to know, well, what happened after that? With this event, we've actually correlated multiple feeds from different security tools into one event. And I'll talk about how we do that in just a minute. But similar to what we did with the SolarWinds attack scenario, we can look at this particular scenario and see exactly how did that SQL dump file execution happen. On the left, you can see the timeline of all the different threat vectors. And on the right, you can see the 360-degree diagram. So here, we had some more login failure anomalies. We saw a brute force successful login, and then we saw a bad download from another IP address. Here is our SQL dump file execution, but that's not the end of the story. They create an RDB connection to exfiltrate that data in this example as well. So I'm really excited that I was able to do a live demo without having any issues. So I'm going to go back to the presentation for a few minutes and share screen. And of course, Zoom is not showing me my presentation, so I need to go look at it again. There we go. Okay, can everybody see my screen again? I hope so. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the difference between MDR, XDR, and EDR, for those of you who might not be familiar with our language that we speak here in security. So EDR is typically associated with an endpoint technology. Typically, you'll have an antivirus or some type of malware prevention software on the endpoint. But what's very popular now is the extended detection and response. And so what we're talking about here in EDR is being able to capture things that are happening on the endpoint outside of capturing malware and bad things. And what a lot of the EDR vendors do is they provide a managed service on top of their product, which is interesting to me because if they could stop those things in the first place, they wouldn't need to offer a service about it. But it does generate revenue for all of our managed service providers, so that's still a good thing. When you take EDR and you expand it out to include things like the firewall on the customer site and maybe their email, this is what a lot of the current MSPs provide as far as security. What MDR does is it really connects all those things. And that's great, but that doesn't provide the full picture. I think today we've talked a lot about the erosion of the perimeter of the network and how there's a lot of users that are working from home, accessing SaaS applications and public clouds. And you need to be able to collect the login telemetry and the network telemetry from those things so that you can begin to detect the attacks like we've just showed in the portal. We call this XDR. This is something that we've been working with Gartner on for the last few months to try to define because there's so many different definitions of XDR today. When we talk about full visibility, there are key areas in the attack surface that you're going to need different technologies to collect from. You're going to need things that connect to the network, whether that's a switch or a firewall. You'll have your endpoint security technologies. You'll have your different SaaS applications. You'll have the different clouds that may host critical servers for your customer. And then you'll need to collect user information. Many of those are separate products in and of themselves. Some MSSPs have full stacks built out for these things. Our platform was really designed for smaller MSP partners who are stepping into the MSS world, so they can take this one step at a time. But in order to do all of these things and to show you the things like I showed you in that quick demo, we need sensors at the network. We need sensors in the virtual servers to get east-west traffic. We need sensors in the cloud or API connections to the cloud to collect that information. And then, we do that for pretty much any manufacturer that's out there today. We have hundreds of parsers that collect syslog data, and we have dozens of API connectors, but we're constantly adding new ones. We're collaborating with our partners by creating tools to help them create their own parsers. And we also create parsers as part of our software, and we do not provide services. So this platform is really just designed for the MSP and the MSSP. The big difference between leveraging a new platform like this that performs XDR and leveraging something like a SIEM is that the older siloed tools and rules-based tools tend to have blind spots because their data is not integrated. What we've done at Stellar Cyber is we've taken those disparate log sources and we actually pull the security metadata out of the logs for two reasons. Number one, it gives us better visibility because we correlate all of that security data into one record format. As we're doing that, we have over 15 different threat feeds that are part of the platform They come with the platform out of the box. You don't have to pay extra for them. And what that does is we enrich every interflow record that we create through this patented process with that threat intel. So when a security analyst or somebody in your NOC looks at that, we'll give you the reputation of what's happening, the threat score, everything that you need to know in one record. So now you don't have to have multiple subscriptions. You don't have to go searching for things. It becomes very simple, and you can turn a level 1 SOC analyst into a level 2 SOC analyst just leveraging technology. Anything that you do in security involves collection, detection, investigation, and response. What we've done is we've built all of these functions into one seamless platform. So we have sensors that you can deploy on things like domain controllers, Windows servers, Linux servers. You can connect to AWS CloudTrail. We can even pull login information from Salesforce.com. By collecting all of that data and putting it into that interflow format, we can create machine learning based detections, which I'm going to teach you about here in a couple minutes. And we can create new detections all the time. So every release, we're coming out with new detections. As a matter of fact, COVID has actually helped our data scientists develop specific detections for remote worker use cases. And we were actually finding a lot of zero-day attempts leveraging some of those new detections. Finally, you need to make it simple to investigate. You can do a simple word search in our tool. If your customer calls you and says, hey, I read about Sunburst in the news yesterday, do I have this? And you can look in that search window, and within half a second, you'll know. Ultimately, what we need to do is also enable the service provider to respond quickly. And we do that through automation. We have integrations with all of the major firewall platforms, all of the major EDR platforms. And so when we find these things and we make these detections, you can actually automate response. You can quarantine an endpoint. You can send a block rule out to a firewall. And all of those things help make your teams more efficient. And the sooner you close that window for that security issue, the less of a cleanup there's going to need to be done. Let's talk about machine learning for a minute, because a lot of different vendors talk about it, and they talk about it at a really high level and say, hey, I have AI or I have an ML. But what there's actually 3 different types of machine learning. And that machine learning falls under artificial intelligence, right? So supervised learning is where you actually leverage math and technology to determine if something's good or whether it's bad. So here at the bottom, you're seeing, when we create these new models, let's say for malware, we'll feed the math as many samples as we can get of malware. In addition to that, we also have to train the math model to know what's good. So we'll feed it as many good applications as we can, so that when we plot all this out through the math model and the machine learning, we can determine with a high degree of efficacy if something's good or whether it's bad. In production, then, what we're doing is when we see something that does or does not have a reputation, we can leverage our machine learning against it, and the machine learning can classify it even if we've never seen it before. So this is great for, run-of-the-mill malware, files, things that, you can test, right? But what about, learning how your customer's environment normally acts? Well, that's what you use unsupervised machine learning for. And what we've done in the Stellar Cyber platform is we're leveraging machine learning on each individual customer's tenant. And we do have a full, multi-level, multi-tenant console. So not only can you have kind of root access to all of the tenants in your data lake, you can also give access to downstream partners who might be selling to their downstream customers. And we have full role-based access so that you can control who can see what, down to a very granular level. But what this unsupervised machine learning does is it takes things like IDS and suricata signatures, and it can look at hundreds of thousands of samples. And leveraging these four-dimensional models, it can actually determine if something is bad to the 0.9999% accuracy. So what it does is it learns the baseline of everything in that environment, the users, the network, the firewall, any of the other security appliances that we're pulling logs from. And anytime something happens that's anomalous, we're essentially burning the haystacks and handing you the needles, to coin an earlier term that I heard today. And then finally, machine learning is only as good as the people operating it. And I think this also came up in an earlier conversation. So what we do at Stellar Cyber is we give, first, we'll use the supervised learning and the anomaly detection to, burn the haystacks so that we can get to the needles. But then once we do, it has the ability for you to influence the models. So if you do a PCI scan, every week at a certain time, that's an anomalous activity on that particular network. But if it's for a PCI scan, it's going to happen every week. So what you can do is you can eliminate that from detection going forward. We'll still record it as an event and you can still search on it, but it helps you tune the machine learning for that customer's environment. And again, the console is really interesting. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I think what's more important is, how do you get into a technology like this? Because we help a lot of MSPs kind of graduate to MSSP. I think the reason that a lot of them, invest in the platform is that it's very difficult to have a relationship with a third party to provide SOC services at the same level of care that you provide to your end customers. So a lot of them want to figure out, hey, I'm monitoring their firewalls and I'm monitoring their endpoint. And yeah, they have email security, but none of that's connected. I don't have a SOC. I don't have a SIM. What can I do? Well, one of the things that I talk about with a lot of those partners is step them into it. You don't have to go from 8x5 security monitoring to threat hunting in one session with your customer, right? A great way to do it is to start by connecting those things that you're already monitoring today through the tool, and you can start providing 8x5 security monitoring during business hours. What'll ultimately happen is you'll start to see a lot of alerts and things happen at night because that's when the bad guys are busy, and they'll see those alerts and want you to watch it 24/7. You can do this on a pager if you need to, because again, we're going to burn the haystacks and just feed you guys the needles. From there, you could do an add-on for a managed detection and response service. Say, okay, we'll automatically set up playbooks to go and block things on a firewall when we see this happen. Next, and you can kind of flip-flop these last two steps. You could either go straight into a remediation service, or you could do threat hunting and then provide a remediation service after that. But ultimately, you can add $25 a user for about the cost of $1 or less a user, by purchasing our platform. Another way to look at it is to have different levels of security that you offer in your offering, right? So start with monitoring perimeter technologies, move your way into, cloud access and monitoring their SaaS accounts, providing, SIM type services, and then, move into user-based behavior, EDR, then move into more automated threat hunting, and then the SOAR capabilities, and then ultimately the full package. So some couple of different ways to look at it. Again, our job is to integrate with as many platforms as possible. So we do that every day. We're constantly building new parsers, and having that open platform really differentiates us from a lot of the other people that are selling XDR today. If you buy XDR from, Palo Alto or Fortinet, it's only going to work on Palo Alto or Fortinet. Just by choosing an open platform like this, you expand your addressable market, and that's really the goal. So we are, covered by Gartner now. We're moving into providing some enterprise, level products, and in addition to the MSP focused products. So if you're considering, looking at any of these platforms, or you're considering moving from being an MSP to being an MSSP, or even just expanding your services, look for an open platform, make sure that it's easy to use, and make sure that you can get fast time to value. And that's all I had, Pelham.
Awesome. No, I love it. And I like how, you make it bespoke. And of course, it's different if you're an MSP than if you're an MSS, than if you're an end customer. So it's all to play for. We've got nice comments. Michael says, gotta love the swim lane call out, Brian. Gotta love Colorado companies. George, can't see George's second name. George, isn't it inevitable that the more military packages will increasingly become the base standard? So I guess that's relating to the more expansive packages in the current climate. What's your impression? Are people going to opt for the more expansive packages?
Yeah, I think they are, but I think smaller customers just need to be, brought into that slowly, right? I think there's some big challenges right now, right? I mean, the only difference between, an RMM getting hacked and SolarWinds was the scope of their customers, right? And so I think the attackers probably learned a lot from attacking those smaller tools, and that's what led to the SolarWinds breach. But I think the really challenging thing is if somebody, a nation state steals your, customer database or something, right? Outside of cyber risk insurance, where, maybe you'll get your notification costs covered, you're never going to get your, IP back, right? And even if you knew it was Russia, or you pointed the finger at China, what's your recourse?
Yeah.
It's much more important to detect it and minimize it quickly than it is to point the finger at who did it, unfortunately. And until, those parties can be held responsible, it's really a big challenge, especially for smaller companies. They don't have the wherewithal to, lobby Washington because their customers got breached.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? We've got nice comments as well coming in. Brad says any capability running in a data center is a potential target, a la SolarWinds. And I guess, what do you think is going to happen when the rest of this supply chain breach sort of plays out? That'd be probably a nice thing to look at.
Well, so I think, we're starting to see more regulation for end users like CCPA, and there's going to be more of those rolled out. I would say probably later this year. I think COVID might have slowed that down a little bit, but I would be surprised if we didn't see some sort of regulation for the software manufacturers to prove that they're securing their updates and their code before it's going out to their customer base.
I think that type of standardization, as in the UK, we're trying to create an IoT as standard security protocol. So,
well, and
something like that.
The other piece is that we detected SolarWinds out of the box, right? I mean, we did a study, for our data scientists, did a study for our customers just to show them exactly how it shows up in the tool. But I think we just need to arm the managed service providers so they can see these things evolving, because if it wasn't SolarWinds, it could have been a phishing attack. It could have been, a brute force attack. The goal is to get inside your network. Once you get a foothold inside your network, then you're in trouble. And so the sooner you capture that activity, the less damage there's going to be, and the sooner, you can get back to business as usual.
And I'm sure business as usual is where we're all wanting to head, at least a little bit. So fantastic. Well, great comments and great presentation as always, Brian. Please give Brian a wonderful round of applause. Thank you very much. We'll see you very soon.
Thanks, Pelham.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Stellar Cyber for supporting the event and many other events. We've got nice clapping in the audience. Heather's clapping, Leanne's clapping, Darren's clapping. It's all go, go, go. I'll see you very soon, Brian.
See you soon, Pelham.
Monty's clapping, Stephen's clapping, all very good, very good. Well, thank you very much to all our supporters, and of course, all you, for being such a great. Thank you, Wolf, a great audience. We are very, very pleased to be supported by Fish Tech Group, and what I'd like to do is bring our fantastic next speaker up to the stage, Eric Foster, President of Sideris, who's going to talk us through human-led, machine-driven security as a service.